Hello. Oh, I've heard myself for the first time. Good morning, everybody. And say, I don't know how to say good morning in Spanish. It's really bad, isn't it? Buenos dias.
Buenos
Good
dias.
day.
Yeah.
Welcome to the first session here on the Accelerate stage at IBTM. And you are here, as it says on the screen, at Trends and Insights Special. This is a special preview, and it's a deep dive into the innovations that will define 2022. My name is Felicia Asiedu. I am from Cvent. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for Europe at Cvent. And just shameless plug, I'm so sorry, but we're just out there. So as you leave here, if you want to go and see Cvent, we're just right behind you. And I'm also one of the co-founders of the Diverse Speaker Bureau. And I'm joined this morning by the author of the IBTM World Trends Report, Ali Turner, also Managing Director of 8PR Marketing.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me here, to be honest.
Yes.
So I'm going to just give you a little quick spiel, and then I'll start firing questions at you. But I want you to know that you can also fire questions at Ali at any time. I'm not waiting to the end. This is a very interesting and interactive stage, so you can always ask questions. But my little bit of spiel is this. I was hearing people say, post-pandemic, this is happening. We're now post-pandemic. Isn't it wonderful? Either that or you'll hear uncertain times over the last 18 months. Hasn't it been very uncertain? And it's all very cliche. But it's still true. The uncertain times, we are not post-pandemic. And the last 2 days should let you know we're certainly not post-pandemic. But we're in a very different place to where we were back in March 2020. We didn't really know what was going to happen. And the Trends Report of 2021 cited the Trends Report of 2020 saying, OK, we kind of didn't really know what was going to happen. So we were in no man's land. But now we've got 2-ish years of data. We have some trends that will hopefully see us into 2022, where we have lived in a pandemic and done our jobs in a pandemic. So I'm hoping you've got all the answers with that then. Is that the case?
Some.
What is this Accelerate stage that we're on?
Oh yeah, no. We should talk a little about the Accelerate stage first. So this is the brief for the Accelerate was all about corporate creativity, innovation. And what we found was that a lot of the things that were coming out of the Trends Report spoke to that market. It was all about people that look into the future, that want to do things slightly differently. And what we've tried to do with Accelerate as much as possible is to do something slightly different with it as well. So we've got all sorts of mini experiments going through. Now the big reveal is the Global Trends Report is a massive 60-page, 20,000-word document, which I'm sure you're looking forward to reading. But the secret is if you just spend the next 3 days here in the Accelerate stage, you might not need to read it at all because everything's coming out as we go. But take a little bit. It's the film of the book.
Nice.
And we're going to be touching on things like this. This is a specialist session that we wanted to do because I'll be speaking shortly for about an hour about global trends in the main knowledge program. But what we wanted to do really was try and bring that into more of the corporate brand and business sort of market to make it a little bit more pointed for people that are specifically interested in that.
Excellent. That's super helpful because I like to read the books first normally, but that's quite a long book, so I'll be part of the film. So let's get started. What can you tell us are some of the key things that we can learn in the Trends Report?
Yeah, no, of course. So the first thing I'd say is everyone's talked about pre and post-pandemic. And I spoke to around 60 sources, businesses, individuals, leadership, personalities, both majority outside of industry, although quite a few inside the industry as well. And everyone kept on talking about this line. There's a line. There's a bit before and after. Now, for the last 2 years, no one's really known where the line is. So whether you know whether you're in the post-pandemic or not, most people have drawn the line. Now, in some industries, that line's a long further in the future. In some industries, it's a long further in the past. But everyone's sort of decided there is a bit called post-pandemic. Now, it may mean there's still a pandemic on, and God knows the last few days have shown us exactly that this is something that's not going to be going away anytime soon. But I think it's about one's approach to it. It's how one views it in terms of how they change their business, get ready for what's to come. And one of the main things that came out of the report this year was this idea, I call it frontier territory. It's sort of like, almost like the Wild West, you know, where everything was in front of you and you just had to keep on moving a little bit more west. And there's some businesses and some industries that are charging into it, absolutely charging into it. They're ready for it. They're predicting certain things and they're attacking it with absolute vigor. There's some that are really scared and just waiting and seeing what's going to happen. And it's interesting to see how those two different things take place.
Yeah.
So that's kind of to set the scene on where we are with the trends report.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, that speaks volumes because I've been to a lot of events over the past few months. It seems that everyone's stacked their events towards the end of the year, and then suddenly we've got all these events. But what we noticed was that the corporates weren't always at those events. We noticed that it was more events and hospitality professionals at the events with other events and hospitality professionals saying, oh, we're back. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
But maybe there is a little bit, I mean, are you noticing a bit of corporate latency there?
Yeah, no, I think from the corporate market specifically, event has never been something that's purely a live thing. For a long time, the corporate market has embraced this hybrid thing. There you go, Ting, first use of the word hybrid of the morning. They've embraced it a lot more. So their pivot around that was probably a little bit more seamless. They were able to embrace it a little bit quicker than most. They had kind of experimented with it before. It was just a matter of getting used to it. That was their biggest thing, because it's almost like the event organizer themselves was really used to it, but the business wasn't. So they had to sort of adapt in a slightly different way. Whereas other parts of the market were very much caught rabbit in the headlights.
Yeah.
This is live. We just stop when live stops. Blimey, what do we do now, sort of thing. So I think the corporates were predictably a little bit onto it. I think where we probably saw most corporate problems was when they were cancelling big things.
Yeah.
We all read about Microsoft and Facebook cancelling major conventions around the world. That's where we felt that the corporate market had maybe forgotten us. But actually, they didn't really. They moved in slightly different circles.
Yeah, we've seen that, and there's been a real pickup of technology, obviously, for obvious reasons, going virtual over the last years. But before we get to technology, I want to talk people.
Yes.
What is the report saying about people in terms of those global trends?
Yeah, okay. So I think some of the main trends that I really wanted to sort of focus on as part of this conversation are the ones that directly deal with people, because what corporates most care about is consumers, mostly, or stakeholders or shareholders, but things like that. They deal with people. And there were sort of 5 key trends that we focus on. And these won't be a shock to you, or at least most of them won't be. But these are the top of the agenda for most corporates. First of all, sustainability, absolutely massive to every single corporate out there. If they're not doing something on sustainability, they will be shortly, or they won't be existing shortly. So sustainability is a really key one. The second one is around diversity, equality, and inclusion, which is a massive thing around most corporates. And again, those that aren't dealing with it properly may well be having serious issues in the not too distant future. I should say that corporates are actually very good around these, especially big ones. The third is around security. It's more of a meetings and events specific one, but security, risk, liability is a major thing, clearly, for a corporate organization. Then we have wellness, which continues to be a really important thing. Wellness is changing, and we can maybe delve into wellness in a bit more detail because it's very much changing, especially the people, but also the event organizers' approach to wellness is a big thing we could probably explore. And the last is something that I wish I'd included in the last trends report. It was actually my big miss of 2021's report, was around this thing that we're calling global local. It's this understanding of the juxtaposition between local community-based activity and an awareness of a global world around it. This one's a really interesting one, because what it's going to do is it's going to dictate how we run our meetings. It's very specific to meetings, but it's very specific to people and how global organizations run as well. So those are the 5 things that you probably know at least 4 of them.
And I mean, those are quite big mountains to climb, even individually. And so, I mean, what can corporates do? How should they be tackling those together or individually?
I've been thinking a lot about convergence, and as an aside, what we do is we look in the trends report at different industries. There's no point us as meetings and events professionals just looking at our own industry. We don't learn that much by looking at our own industry. We learn loads by looking at other industries. So who are the key funders of meetings and events globally? So what's the pharma industry doing? What's it up to at the moment? What are its dynamics, and what can we learn that's going to give us some sort of indication around our meetings and events? Automotive would be another one. FinTech, things like that. But what we like seeing is when those 2 industries converge. So we do things like when pharmaceuticals confirms with ITC, so things like wearables. That gives us a huge amount of funding towards our knowledge economies, which fuel conventions, which fuel meetings and discussions and creative moments, ideas, product launches, innovation, things like that. We love it when industries converge. One of the big trends around 2022 is seeing these trends converge as well, these big consumer trends. So one of the things I'm really interested in, I talked about global and local. Now, clearly, there's a lot to be said around this, around the pandemic, because we were all very, very interested in looking after our neighbors, being good citizens. But for some reason, we seem to really be fixated by how Israel was doing on its vaccination charts compared to Sweden, and how was Africa going to sort itself out, and what was going on in Australia. So we had a more global view, which changed a lot of the way people, consumers, societies think about themselves. You then juxtapose that around something like sustainability. COP, the need to save the planet. And again, we have this global, local juxtaposition. Then we think about our meetings. So we talked about, not so long ago, the new thing. I don't know whether people have talked about it, but I'm sure you're all aware of it. It's called Spoken Hub.
Yeah.
We have one major centre, and we have lots of surrounding satellite events. Now, it used to be the old ages that we would have one major convention, and globally we'll bring loads of people to a central location. But actually, this global local thing sort of points towards this need for local tastes, local feel, a local area. This idea of bringing everyone in feels very unsustainable, feels a lack of community there. So actually, let's have a central thing. Let's have lots of things around it. And that could be on a global level. It could be on a country or a continent-specific level as well. And we start hitting diversity, we start hitting things like sustainability as well around that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So it's these convergence of trends that really excite me.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I don't know if you'd agree with me, but it still sounds like a lot of work, to be fair. And we often get questioned, well, am I not just now paying double, triple, quadruple for all these different ways? And, is that driver coming from the people that are asking for it, or are we just trying to push the boundaries? So how should we be thinking about that?
So I'll let you into the last slide of my presentation. It doesn't mean you don't come. You can still very welcome to come. But one of the things that I keep on thinking about is exactly that question. What does this actually mean? As event organizers, what does it mean? And I've been sitting in cold, dark rooms thinking about what this direction of travel, where it ends up. And one of the things I keep on thinking about is what is one of the first responsibilities of an event organizer? What do they have to do to be good event organizers? And to me, they have to find their audience. Now, my thinking is the usual people that would come to a traditional convention event will be the audience that they want to, that just so happens to like going to live events, and just so happens to be able to make it that day and can travel there in a way that pleases them. Now, that's not the whole audience. That's just the audience that could do it. Let's think about all the people that hate live events, that don't want to be there, that don't want to come, never had done, never will do. They still want to buy products. They still want to engage with communities. They still want to do stuff with the world. They just don't like coming to live events.
Yeah.
Or they can't because there's a pandemic. Or they can't because they don't want to travel across the world for small sessions or something like that. So actually, if we're good event organizers, we have to reconstruct our thinking to go and get them. We have to meet them where they are, or at least halfway. So actually, again, we look at some of these convergences of trends, which is, again, big topic here. We've got this centennial audience that's going to turn up, and boy, they're not a bunch that we're going to be able to convince to do things that they're not too keen on doing.
Yeah.
They're scary-sounding people, these centennials. They're not going to meet us halfway. We have to go and get them.
Yeah.
And if we don't, then there will be emptier rooms and emptier things. And if we're not thinking about that now, then it's going to hit us in the face sometime really close to our next event.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take a moment. There's lots of people here. Any questions? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. If you have any questions, just raise your hand, and I'm sure we can get you a microphone. Are we not there yet? You need warming up. It's morning time, I understand.
That's fair enough. Sorry, you gave me a water break, but thank you.
So you mentioned earlier something about wellness, and you said you're going to come back to that because it's changing. In what way is wellness changing?
Yeah. In short, the Global Trends Report this year is a really positive one. To be honest with you, compared to the last 2 years, it was never going to be anything but certainly more positive. But I think one of the things that I'm personally really concerned about is wellness. And we split it into two, really, that section. The first is general societal wellness. And everyone keeps on thinking that, we are now in the era of the pandemics. I think everyone's pretty much assured that that's happening. But the big pandemic is the one behind the one that we're all talking about, which is the wellness pandemic, the mental health tsunami, as many reports are calling it, of people being really, really unwell. And it's going to put more pressure on institutions of health institutions, medical institutions, in the same sort of degrees as COVID. So this is coming at us, and this is a big thing that the medical community are really scared about. The pharma community are really adapting to at the moment. They've done a lot of work around that. And the statistics are horrible. I mean, I'm not going to reel them off, but we're talking around 50% levels of depression, sleep deprivation, lack of purpose, loss of connection, all those sort of things that we don't want. Children are massively hit by this as well, so this is going to hurt children a lot. And there's some really damaging statistics that's coming our way. Why is that important to us? You know, it's important to all of us, but why is that important to us as an event organizer stuff? Because I think it's really important that we have to understand the state of mind that our audience has as it enters into our events.
Yeah.
We have to start thinking about how these guys feel. And with respect, I'm not an event organizer, unfortunately, so I empathize but can't quite sympathize and that sort of side of things, is that we're not very good at making people feel welcome. We treat people often, bad events treat people like commodities, great events treat people like people. So what we do is shove them around, make them do things that we want to do because that's where the ROI and value is. We can't do that anymore. We've got to start treating people more like people and understand their state of mind.
Yeah.
That's really, really important. The second thing is, event organizers, over the last 2 years, what we've started to understand is that event organizers are uniquely exposed to mental health issues. Uniquely exposed. There was that Forbes article, I don't know whether everyone saw it / believed it, but it put event organizers the 5th worst job for stress. It was behind military and health, just behind military and health. And a lot of the statistics and a lot of the research that came out of that was all about this idea that because you love your highs as an event organizer, there's a flip side of that coin that gives you lows. Now let's think about what the average event organizer has been through over the last 2 years. Loss of job, loss of income, loss of other people, who their sides have been sort of reduced, lack of purpose, lack of work. If you love doing events and you're not doing events, then where is your purpose? So you've got all these sort of things going on. For those that have come back and those that have stayed as well, what else have we got? We're suddenly turning our event organizers from just people that used to make sure things like this all run really nice. Now they're film directors.
Yeah.
The creative directors. They're in charge of live streaming. Their job lists have just doubled, even tripled, right?
With less people as well.
With less people and no training. And by the way, no one to sit there and hug in their office every now and again. So their events, their minds have changed. I was talking to some students about it, and I said, well, you know, you must be really excited about this career in events, all these different things you'll have to be doing. So it went sheet white.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely petrified of it because there's no infrastructure for it.
Yeah.
There's this idea that they'll just get on. And then you've got this other thing around you, which is this mental health thing around events. So we are uniquely exposed. And we're going to have to really look after each other and put
Thank you so, so much.